Okay, what's up guys? At Con+1, it's Jayson at the UK Games Expo in the Hilton Bar, and I am joined today by the marvellous, the mighty Mike Mason from Chaosium. So how's it going today?
Oh, really good. We've had a great first day so far on the Friday Games Expo. The stand's been busy all day. It's not even Saturday yet, and we've just got the first round of the Cthulhu Masters running now, and everyone seems to be having a good time, so things are going well, thanks.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that actually, because obviously this year it's quite new in that there was a Cthulhu Masters, but now Chaosium have sort of officially taken it over as their sort of their baby, if you will. But I want to get your sort of general opinion on RPG tournaments as a concept, because they have sometimes been a thing in the past, but it's really only now where they've started to get a bit more mainstream. So how do you feel personally about tabletop RPGs actually becoming a tournament or something that you have to kind of work hard to win at?
Well, when I started going to conventions some years ago, it started out by just running normal con games like everyone does, and one of the things I wanted to do was to increase the number of Call of Cthulhu games available, as they were always selling out and demand was always there. So to do that, actually, I started I think the first UK Call of Cthulhu tournament, which we just called the UK Nationals at the time, and ran that across either the Battle Masters convention, and then we moved it to Gen Con UK. So I'm kind of fine with tournaments, and I quite like them. I think tournaments are a kind of funny thing. It's kind of like how do you determine the best player in a tournament kind of thing, and it's not an easy question to answer, but we worked out a scheme long ago based around the kind of the keeper's viewpoint of how things went, and then nowadays we've moved to a more kind of like the players plus the keeper's viewpoint. So players vote and the keeper votes as well, and nominated players kind of maybe go through to another round. I think it helps to just focus things, because at the end of the day, it's not really about winning and who's the best, and because everyone's taking part, everyone's having a good time. And the main point is that hopefully everyone has a good time and enjoys the game, and that's really what it's about. But it just brings a bit of a focal point of interest to a specific event, and so I think that's really what it is about. Really, it's a focal point and kind of celebration of the game and the play. And hopefully, everyone goes away having experienced a good game. The GM's had a good game, the players have a good game, and maybe there's a few prizes at the end. And hey, but yeah, that's for me that's what it's all about.
Cool. And also with Cthulhu itself as an RPG and running sessions of it, one thing, because obviously I've run a few as well in my time, at conventions in particular it can be quite difficult to run Cthulhu because of the time frames, because you kind of want the time for it to breathe and grow and for the setting to sort of get taken in by the players. So what would be your advice to someone who may be curious of running a Cthulhu game, in particular at conventions where timing is of the essence?
I think it's really, with convention games, obviously you've got, as you said, a set time that you need to kind of play within. And I think it's important to play within that time and not to exceed that, because players often have another game to go to. You don't want to kind of disrupt their time schedule. So I think it's important that you keep to time. And I think to do that is to focus down on what the play is of the scenario, and really kind of focus down onto the key moments or key part of that campaign that can be played out and given enough time to breathe within the time scale, and rather than trying to run a very sprawling kind of sandbox where the players could go all over and you may not reach a satisfactory conclusion, is to try and be a bit more direct, and con games and con scenarios are can be different because of that. They do need to be focused. They can start in media res, for instance, and just get the players into a scene, get them reacting, get them focused, and then move from there, rather than the traditional more slow build up is to kind of throw them in at something and then let them kind of find their way around and find the information through the course of the events of the scenario, rather than a longer lead in. I think it's working out what are the the key kind of beats of the scenario and focusing down on those, and not being afraid to kind of cut to the chase, to sort of say, okay, we're here now, where you want to go. We're not going to role play travel across the continent. We're just going to say, okay, you've traveled there, now it's this day, you're ready, you stood outside the house, let's go, what are you going to do? And just move things on and not be afraid to that, because treat it a little bit more cinematically perhaps in that way. I think that can often help the con game in that way.
Yeah, and I think that 7th edition has some aspects of that built in anyway. So, like the chasers, for example, it seems to be more sort of snappy in how the system works, and you've streamlined things a lot more as well. It does give off that vibe to me as well, where you can, if you want, just go straight into it rather than the sort of gradual build that's quite traditional.
Yeah, I think what we tried to do is provide the keeper with the tools to do the game they want. I mean, if you look at the 7th edition rulebook, at the end of every rules chapter, there's a bunch of optional rules, because we know people, play in different styles and use different things. So hopefully it addresses the kind of traditional kind of slow burn investigation, but equally it's just as happy to play with a more action orientated or a sequence of events type of scenario, and hopefully it kind of comfortably fits that need and allows you to kind of adapt the game to your preferred play style.
Yeah, and also just moving on a little bit to what else you've been doing at the Expo. So first of all, you guys have got not 1 but 3 awards for Two-Headed Serpent, which is obviously one of your new modules. So congratulations for that first of all. Would you say that with this sort of pulp Cthulhu, if someone's quite new to Cthulhu, and to be honest, I am fairly new in sort of layman's terms Cthulhu, would you think that 7th edition, the regular one, would be best to start with than pulp, or is it more a case of what people prefer anyway?
I think it does come down to your preferred preference. We revised 7th edition to be a much more accessible book for new people to the game. So the rules are presented in a kind of a logical flow, and hopefully there's a fair bit of hand-holding and advice in terms of lots of examples of play to help you kind of understand the rules and how to implement them in the game. But in terms of your style, I mean, Pulp Cthulhu is meant to kind of just easily kind of dovetail into the core Call of Cthulhu rules. And so it really comes down to your preferred style of play. If you prefer very much that kind of Indiana Jones-esque style of epic kind of action adventure, then Pulp really does kind of suit that much more than standard Call of Cthulhu. But people have been playing Pulp style standard Cthulhu for many years without the Pulp rules. So I mean, you can do it. But my advice for anyone starting the game is to go in, start with the Quick Start, which is a free download from our website. It includes a scenario. There's also Alone Against the Flames, which is a solo play scenario, which again is a free download, which actually, as you play it on your own, it teaches you the rules as you go. So you learn the basic rules by playing. If you like that, then the rulebook and Pulp Cthulhu are both options for you to then move on to. And we've tried to support new entrants into the game with collections like Doors to Darkness, which is a set of scenarios, all kind of can be played on 1 or 2 sessions, but they are geared for newer players and new keepers, and have a little bit more hand-holding. So I think we've tried to kind of provide a range of kind of options of ways into the game, depending on your kind of style of play, really, in a way. And ultimately, one of the joys of role-playing is to try it and to figure out what your preferred style is. You may start with standard Cthulhu and kind of drift into kind of Pulp Cthulhu and find that that's your home, or you may start with Pulp and actually find you prefer that kind of slow burn, gritty, darker kind of more nihilistic horror that standard Cthulhu tends to provide, and that's great too, because I mean one of the beauties of Call of Cthulhu is because it plays across numerous kind of historical eras. It plays to different styles of game, so it can be all things to different people, and so the joy is to kind of find out, well, what's your niche in this? What's your niche, and enjoy and go for it.
Yeah, and speaking of which, with the numerous styles, we're going to pretend for a minute that we're not filming this in June, and that actually it's going to be in November sort of time, since that's when this is going to come out. Are we able to get a little bit of insight as to what kind of things you're going to be releasing? Because certainly for me, I'm really looking forward to this rumour of this new Gaslight edition being released. So can you tell us a little bit about what's going to come up in the next few months?
Sure. So towards the end of 2018, things that will be appearing in print will be Masks of Nyarlathotep will have just come out a month or 2 ago in print, which is obviously the kind of revision and revamp of the classic Call of Cthulhu campaign. Also, I think probably just released has been the new box set of Call of Cthulhu, which is a starter box set. It's a basic box set that introduces you into the game, comes with a set of dice and comes with some classic scenarios that old-time players will remember, things like Paper Chase, Edge of Darkness, and Dead Man Stomp. So that's quite exciting because, again, it's a new accessible way to get into the game. But also in terms of things like Gaslight, we've got a new edition of Gaslight in the works currently, and we're looking for that to, all being well, to come out in 2019. And around about the same time, or following that, will be a brand new campaign for Gaslight, which is called The Curse of Seven, and that's being written by Penelope Love and also supported by Mark Morrison, as well as a number of other authors who have contributed scenarios. And it's all set across England in the Victorian era, and involves a series of cursed pennies. In fact, there's 7 of them, Curse of Seven, the cursed pennies, and a lot of the scenarios riff and kind of stylistically play off English horror writers. So there's a kind of a scenario that kind of is kind of inspired by M.R. James. There's another one that's inspired by Arthur Machen, and so on. But they all link together to form this very kind of interesting campaign. So that will be following out, and we also, for Gaslight fans, who always tell me that there's not enough support for Gaslight, is we have a collection of standalone scenarios for Gaslight also ready and waiting to follow on from the release of the Gaslight book. The other kind of setting book that may be of interest is the revamp of the new edition of Dreamlands, which is going to be hopefully full of fabulous new artwork and maps of the Dreamlands, but also not only just be kind of H.P. Lovecraft's Dreamlands as it's been previously presented, which often can seem a little more fantasy than horror. What we're doing is, obviously there will still be H.P. Lovecraft's Dreamlands in there, but also there'll be a series of kind of advice and essays about actually what is the nature of dream within the game, and actually looking at that more in terms of how that could work in the game. You know, dream logic, which perhaps wasn't so much in the early editions, and also different styles and tones of dream, as in, well, what would the Dreamlands look like in Nightmare, for example. So that's also currently in the works as well, and should be hitting the shelves hopefully sometime in 2019 as well. And probably around about now, if my timing's about right, either just released or coming very soon should be Terra Australis, which is a complete reworking of the very old supplement Terra Australis, which is obviously a supplement all about Australia in the 1920s, and that's coming out. It's been revamped, lots of new material, new scenarios in there, and that should be a great book for either investigators visiting Australia on their way, or campaigns and adventures set in Australia with Australian characters from a variety of backgrounds, and it's looking really cool. So that's anytime now. So yeah, lots of stuff, very busy. Yeah.
And have you guys considered as well, because obviously you've expanded a lot on your sort of repertoire now that 7th edition's fully out there. Obviously with Cthulhu it's a very in-depth system, and the settings are also very in-depth, and I've learnt from other DMs that props are a great thing to use, and handouts and things like that. Is that something that you would be wanting to consider actually releasing on an official basis? So you'd release a module and here are some handouts to go with it type thing?
Okay. Within each of our kind of campaigns and scenarios, there's obviously normally a bunch of handouts and maps which are used to give the player as props. We normally present those in the book and provide PDFs of those for keepers to print out their own copies, and if they want to alter them and tamper them in some way, they can do. But we don't normally produce what you might call deluxe prop sets. That's not our expertise. What we're good at is putting out books and adventures and that kind of thing. But what we have is a number of licensees that do that kind of thing, and that's what they do best. So we're happier to sort of let people that do it well, let them do that. So, for instance, Masks of Nathatep is a great example. There's a plethora of handouts and artifacts you can physically use in the game. So we produce a standard set that look very attractive, but we're working with the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society, who are well-known prop makers, and they do very high-end, player handouts and maps, and they're producing a kind of a deluxe set, and then they're also producing a deluxe set with some actual 3D props and items and artifacts you can use as part of the game as well. So I think that basis works very well, because that doesn't eat into our time in terms of actually producing great content for people to play with, and allows prop makers like HP Lovecraft Historical Society to do their stuff really well, and to have it just dovetail in, and then it's not obligatory people buy it, but it's there if they want it. And obviously a lot of people do like the stuff because it looks fabulous on the shelf, let alone on the gaming table. So I think that works very well. So that's the approach we tend to do. We work with licensees who are experts in doing whatever they're doing, whether that's producing props or music or whatever it may be. Those guys can do that really well, so let's let them do that.
And speaking of looking fabulous, on a slightly different note, you're doing a couple of live games at the expo. So you do have Sandy's Abominations as well, and there's also, I believe you're in Sirenscape as well. They're doing a Cthulhu game this year. So in terms of live games, again, that's something that's kind of come out of the woodwork. There's really, as far as I can tell, there's been a bit of, obviously, Chris Perkins with D&D, Geek and Sundry have done a few things, but again, it's not quite sort of a thing that's extremely popular, but it is getting there. So what would be your take on actual live streams of live RPGs?
Well, I think it's great. I think sound really old. The younger generation tend to find that much more accessible approach to gaming in terms of learning, just observing and enjoying that as a media in itself, and that's cool. And all the more the better. I mean, for quite a number of years we've had live play podcasts, which are very popular. Either if you're about to run the same scenario, so you can listen to a game and kind of learn from that experience, or just for audio listening, it's kind of good fun to listen to a bunch of people kind of doing silly things at the table. And video is just a natural extension to that, isn't it? And I think the one thing from my point of view, what it kind of presents the game, promotes role playing in general, and Call of Cthulhu in particular, to a wide audience, and so all the better really. So I think it's a great, very positive move, and would like to see more of it. Yeah.
And as well with kind of the extra things within a live game as well. Obviously on YouTube you get a lot of sort of live streams of people playing, so that's very popular, but I guess you take it to the next level with the music, the soundtrack, the lighting, and various other shenanigans you guys get up to.
Well, this is it. It's you already see that with audio podcasts. Sometimes it's literally just a microphone in the middle of the table and you're just hearing that, and then other people are already going to great lengths with great, really good audio quality and sound effects, and obviously that's bound to also kind of come across in video as well. You're going to have a range of different kind of ways that people are going to do it in terms of level of professionalism and just ability. So as I say, all the more the merrier really. And I think in Japan the writing, the fictionalization of gaming sessions is very popular in a written format, and so that's great too. So people will kind of. It's great to see the game not only spawning kind of great experiences and just a fun time at the table, but actually kind of extending outwards and actually providing entertainment through other media as well, all stemming from enjoyment of this particular game. So, which is great, great.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the interview today, and also matching the microphone was very good of you to do that and consider. And of course, thank you so much for your contribution to Con+1 as well this year. If there's anything you want to say as well to your fans, feel free to take the mic and do the camera.
Well, just thanks for having me on. I hope Con+1 goes very, very well. I'm sure it will, and grows from strength to strength. And just to say thanks for playing the game. Keep playing, enjoy, and look forward to seeing you around sometime.